obviously it's a matter for the Labour Party who they choose. But what the Labour Party, and this is where unusually I agree with the Labour Party, which used to be the party of socialism, brought about the NHS, has lost all that. And the reality is that all the things I thought they stood for, they have failed on. They took us to an illegal war. In the whole of the Labour government, they built less than 3,000 council homes in England. They actually built nearly 20,000 prison places. Did they close the gap between the rich and the poor? No, they did not. And the reality for us is to make sure that our leadership isn't any insipid, centrist, yellow, green, blue outcome, but that we can respond to the young woman there and make sure in government we can show what the revolutionary, radical sort of politics can do. And I bet you that at the end of this government we will have showed that the Labour Party are increasingly irrelevant, the old party of the mid-20th century, and that if you want an alternative to the Tories in future, you have a modern, inclusive party that's liberal, not state-centred, hands power away, doesn't keep it, and gives you your liberty.
Do you want to come back?
The Labour Party are not going to be able to find a leader who will change that. It's too late.
Go on then.
But surely it's hypocritical that you're going to, like, get into bed with the Tories when you're saying that you're going to oppose them in the next election. It's completely... It's back to front. It doesn't make sense.
We're a separate party and will remain so, and we will fight every election, including the elections this month, against them. And at the next election, we'll expect to win seats from them. That's our destiny.
A brief point for you. I've got one more question I want to get to. Yes.
So how can you be making saying these things when you've made such a concession on immigration?
Well, on immigration, we have had to make a concession.
Massive,
You're right. No, we have had to make
huge concession.
We have had to make a concession. The only thing we managed to get substantive change from the Tories in that we will end detention of young people in immigration centres, which should never have been the case. It's against the human rights of the child. I agree we've made a concession. It's not what we would...
A million people.
Well, it's not what we would like, and we argued...
You're talking about the amnesty, are you?
Yes, there are a million people to amnesty to a cap on immigration, which is...
It was never a million. We argued for an earned right to citizenship, and it would have been a matter of hundreds of thousands. But we did argue for it, and we believed in it. And I tell you, this government is going to have to face up to the fact that we cannot leave this country with hundreds of thousands of people in the shadows because they don't have status, the legacy of the last Labour and Tory governments.
All right, we've got 5 minutes left, and I want to take a last question from Lauren Hussein, please.
Is this really new politics when the majority of the Cabinet are white middle-class men educated at public school in Oxford?
Is it new politics when the majority of the Cabinet...
Well, I don't think there's anything wrong with being educated at a public school. I don't think there's anything wrong with going to Oxford and Cambridge. Is that a round of applause for Oxford? Thank you. But I think there is a problem if everybody is a man who is white who went to Oxford and Cambridge and before that went to a public school. And you would have thought with a coalition government there would have been a coalition of more people of different gender, different colour, and there's very, very little progress in that direction. And as I said earlier, if you look at the head of this coalition, it's Mr. David Cameron, Mr. Nick Clegg, Mr. George Osborne, and Mr. Vince Cable. That's the quartet, and they all look to me like they come from a very similar, narrow social base, and that's bad for the country, I think.
Melanie Phillips, the new Home Secretary, is a woman and went to grammar school, Theresa May. So is that one up for the sisterhood?
Well, it...
Depends what you mean by the sisterhood.
I've never been called part of the sisterhood before, so this is a first for me. I'm not sure that Theresa May would be considered part of the sisterhood either. It rather depends how she performs in office. Unfortunately, we've had a situation in recent years where women and minorities are promoted simply because they're women and minorities, and they haven't been very good, and they have collapsed. And that has done terrible harm to women and minorities. I want to see people put into place, into positions because they are good enough. But frankly...
You're saying she's going to collapse?
I wouldn't predict anything, but it's a question of which comes first, the collapse of the coalition or the collapse of Theresa May. But anyway, the question is white middle-class men educated at public school and Oxbridge. It's really only those sorts of people who tend to want to run the country anyway. I mean, who on earth would want that sort of job?
John Prescott.
Michael Heseltine.
Well, I think that it takes a huge amount of time for a society to adjust to basically waves of immigration. takes a long time. It took a long time for the Huguenots to be absorbed. It took a long time for the Roman Catholics to settle into society or to be reincorporated into society. It took a long time for the Jewish people to be so. And now no one talks about any of those issues. On the ethnic minorities, the society is changing. Look at this audience, but look at any profession, look at any part of London or the larger British cities.
But not at the House of Commons.
Well, you'll see that David Cameron, I know the figures for David, but I may be different for the other parties. There's been a significant increase in the proportion of women and a significant increase in the representation of the ethnic minorities. And it's not easy. And it's no use using pious language about all of this. This is as tolerant a society on anything on earth. And we're working at it. People want it to happen. Change is taking place. And there are now really significant areas in which ethnic minorities are becoming leaders of their individual society.
You, sir.
This is just in response to Melanie Phillips, who isn't white and educated at Oxbridge that would like to run the country. I would. I think there's many others like me as well.
OK. Will you get a car?
7 minutes, briefly, because we're coming to the end here.
The answer is it has been a failure of the new politics. Unarguably, more than half the country are women. 10 out of every 100 come from the black or minority communities. We have failed. Absolutely
failed. You've got no Liberal Democrat women in Cabinet?
We have, I don't know yet, not in the Cabinet, but certainly I would hope among the ministerial group. So I think we have to not just have a proportional system which gives more women and more people from minority communities, and that would do, but we also now positively, our party, and I hope the other parties, all of them, need to look not just at positive action, but positive discrimination in favour of women and minorities. We need a fair parliament.
Michael's talking about pious language. There's a lot of pious language here. Sorry. Out of 29 people who can attend Cabinet, 4 of them are women. That's 14%. We don't have to go far. Spain has 53%. Sweden has 50%. Germany has 36%. France has 33%. We have 14%. And as for ethnic minorities, the Liberal Democrats, we were told a few minutes ago, are the party of the 21st century. Labour is an increasingly 20th century party. An all-white party, 57 MPs, not a single ethnic minority MP.
Why?
7 women.
Why?
Well, because, first of all...
the voters are
well, to be fair, described. I never thought I would ever say this, but to be fair to the David Cameron and the Conservative Party, they actually took some efforts to get some more ethnic minority candidates into winnable seats. Nick Clegg, the master of the new politics, didn't bother. And that's why he's got 7 women and no ethnic minority. And in Cabinet, we have 1 ethnic minority face, Saida Varsi, who's an unelected peer. This new government should hang its head in shame.
I'm afraid that's it. That's it for Question Time. Our hour's up. Sorry about that, for those of you who still wanted to speak. But we're going to be, we hope, in Richmond next week. The week after that, we're going to be in Gravesend, where Piers Morgan is on the panel. I don't know why I say that, but anyway, there we are. It's very nice to have him. I think it shows we haven't yet decided on the other 4, whatever it is. Anyway, if you'd like to come to either of these programmes, that's Richmond and Gravesend, the number to ring is the usual one, 0871 626 9988, or go to our website, which is there on the screen. Thank you all, the panel, thank you all for coming here to take part in the programme. Until next Thursday from London, good night.
There was Morecambe and Wise, the 2 Ronnies, and now Cameron and Clegg. What makes for a classic double act? It's this week, next on BBC One.
The Hamilton-James family are keeping a diary.
I really want to get the kids inspired by wildlife.
It's going to be wicked! As they spend an entire year getting to know their wild neighbours along the river. Halcyon River Diaries, Sunday at 6:10 on BBC One.
Modern art, it sells for a fortune, but what's it ever done for us? Has it influenced the clothes that we wear, or the buildings that we live in, the cars that we drive, even the way that we think?
Modern Masters continues with Picasso, Sunday at 9 on BBC One.
Now on BBC One, imagine it's Downing Street. The birds are singing, the sun's shining, and love is in the air.